My parents couldn't be bothered to text me on my birthday, but they bought my sister a brand new house. So I removed myself from their world, and watching them try to locate me was honestly ridiculous. My name is Maya, and I'm 28 years old. I've got one younger sister, Lena, who's 25. All through our childhood, it was painfully obvious that Lena was the shining star while I was basically the trial run. You know how some parents stumble their way through raising the first kid and then nail it with the second? That was pretty much my family, except they never stopped treating me like the rough sketch they'd already moved past. Lena got ballet, piano, painting workshops, and fancy summer programs. I got the classic line about how money was tight and extras weren't in the budget. When Lena turned 16, they handed her the keys to a brand new car. When my turn came, I got a long talk about being responsible and a bus pass. Her entire college experience was covered, right down to her sorority fees and a semester abroad. Meanwhile, I juggled 3 jobs, took out loans I'm still paying off, and tried to convince myself that maybe my parents had simply learned better financial habits by the time Lena came along. After I finished school, landed a solid marketing job, and kept trying to stay close to my family despite always feeling like an outsider at every holiday, I figured things might eventually even out. But everything snapped on my 28th birthday, March 15th. I'm not someone who needs balloons or a parade, but getting a quick happy birthday text from your own parents seems like the bare minimum. The day came and went without a single word. No call. No message. Nothing at all. I waited until the following day, thinking maybe they'd realize the slip-up and reach out. Still nothing. By day 3 I was hurt, sure, but not shocked. This was just another chapter in the same old story with them. Then, exactly a week later, I opened Instagram and saw Lena's newest post. She was standing in front of a gorgeous 2-story colonial with a red front door and a cute white fence, dangling house keys and grinning like she'd won the lottery. The caption said, "I can't believe I'm a homeowner at 25. Blessed. Best parents ever. Hashtag dream come true." I stared at that thing for a good 10 minutes. A whole house. They didn't help with the down payment. They bought her the entire place outright. And yet they somehow couldn't remember to send their elder daughter a quick birthday message. I reacted the only way that felt logical. I called my mom. "Maya, sweetheart, how are you?" She answered, genuinely cheerful. "I'm okay, Mom. I saw Lena's post about the house. That's quite a present." "Oh yes, isn't it amazing? Your dad and I found the sweetest little starter home and just had to get it for her. Lena's been working so hard at her new job, and we wanted to help her get settled." Lena had been in her marketing coordinator role for precisely 4 months. "Mom, well yes, but she's doing wonderfully. And buying a home is so tough for young folks now." I took a steadying breath. "Mom, did you realize you missed my birthday last week?" Silence. A long dragging silence. "Oh honey, was that last week? I'm so sorry. Time just slips away sometimes. We'll make it up to you. You bought Lena a house and forgot my birthday. Now Maya, don't be dramatic. These are 2 completely separate things." "You're right, they are. One costs around 300 grand, and the other takes about half a minute to type out." "I'm sorry. What else do you expect from me?" That question just hung there. What did I want? I wanted to matter. I wanted to feel like more than some afterthought floating on the edges of their lives. I wanted even half the affection they poured into Lena. But I couldn't bring myself to say any of that. Instead, I answered, "Nothing, Mom. It's fine. We love you, Maya. You know that, right?" "Sure. I've got to go." That night, everything shifted. I'd had enough. I was tired of being the forgotten kid, the backup plan, the one they never quite got right. I was done pretending that the scraps of attention they tossed my way made up for years of imbalance. I was tired of being grateful for crumbs while Lena got the whole feast. So I made up my mind to vanish from their world and see how long it took them to notice. And I didn't want to do it halfway. If I was going to disappear, I'd do it properly. The first step was blocking everyone: Mom, Dad, Lena, and even a few aunts and uncles who definitely run to my parents with anything they saw. No dramatic post, no explanation. I just quietly slipped out of their online orbit. Then I changed my phone number. I'd been planning to switch carriers anyway, so the timing was perfect. I didn't give the new number to a single family member. After that came the bigger move. I'd been eyeing a new job for months, and a company out in Portland had been trying to bring me on. I'd been hesitant because it meant leaving Ohio and starting over, but suddenly that felt like exactly what I needed. I accepted the offer. I told my landlord I'd be out, sold most of my stuff, and packed the rest. Only 3 people knew: Emma, my college friend; Marcus, a coworker I trusted; and Beth, my neighbor who'd become like an older sister to me. 6 weeks after Lena's big house announcement, I was living in Portland, Oregon, 3 time zones away, with a new job, new apartment, new number, and a brand new life. And for the first time in years, I actually felt free. Portland fit me in a way I hadn't expected. Work was exciting and the team respected me. The city felt like a clean slate. I joined a hiking group, signed up for pottery lessons, and even started seeing a guy named Cole who brewed beer at a local spot. For the first time since becoming an adult, I was building something that felt entirely my own. For months past, I occasionally wondered whether my parents had noticed my silence, but I figured they were probably relieved not to pretend interest in their disappointing older daughter. Turns out I guessed wrong. One day in July, Emma called me, laughing so hard she could barely breathe. "Maya, oh my God, you have to hear this." Emma called me saying my mom had tracked her down. She actually said, "Your mom called me." Like it was the most normal thing in the world. I couldn't believe it. My mom had somehow found her number and called her at work, asking if she knew where I was. When Emma asked what she should have said, she explained she'd first had to figure out who this woman even was, because my mom had introduced herself as Patricia Miller, Maya's mother, as if that should have rung a bell. Then my mom launched into how worried she was because I hadn't answered any calls or texts. I laughed when Emma told me. Took her 4 whole months to notice. But that wasn't the wild part. My mom wanted Emma to at least confirm I was safe. So Emma told her yes, I was safe. Then apparently my mom asked if I was mad about something, like she couldn't begin to imagine why I'd be upset. Emma said she wanted to bring up the whole birthday and house situation, but figured I wouldn't want her stepping into the middle of it. Smart move. When I asked what she actually said, she told my mom that if she wanted to know how I felt, she should try asking me directly. That's when my mom got all frustrated and complained that she couldn't do that because she couldn't reach me. And that was just the start. 2 days later, Marcus called. My dad had found his LinkedIn profile and messaged him, asking for information about me. Marcus, being the responsible guy he is, sent a polite reply saying he wasn't comfortable sharing personal details about coworkers. Then Beth called with an even stranger story. My mom had actually shown up at my old apartment building, knocking on random doors until she found someone who recognized me. Beth was in the lobby when my mom practically cornered her. She told me my mom was overly emotional, saying she was terrified something bad had happened to me. When Beth admitted I had moved, my mom asked for my new location. When Beth said she couldn't disclose that, my mom gently grabbed her arm and pleaded, "Please, I just need to know my daughter is okay." Beth felt a twinge of sympathy, until she remembered everything I'd told her about the way my family treated me versus Lena. She told my mom she couldn't help, then headed upstairs, only for my mom to stay in the lobby another 20 minutes asking strangers if they'd seen me. The reports didn't stop there. Former coworkers started calling, telling me my parents had shown up at my old office. My dad wore a suit and tie and introduced himself to the front desk as Mr. Miller, Maya's father. Like that title alone should grant him access to private records. When they told him I no longer worked there and they couldn't give out forwarding details, he asked to speak with my old supervisor. Poor Janet called me afterward. She told me my father had sat in her office for half an hour asking about my state of mind before I left, trying to figure out if I'd seemed depressed or troubled. She kept assuring him I'd taken a great job and seemed genuinely excited, but he insisted my disappearance didn't match the daughter he supposedly knew. Janet said she told him the truth, that I'd been reliable and professional as always. I couldn't help thinking about the irony of my father suddenly acting like an expert on who I was when he hadn't really talked to me in ages. They even tracked down my college alumni office. My friend Rachel called to tell me my mom had shown up with an entire folder of documents, my diploma, old report cards, random college photos, showing them off like she needed to prove that she was really my mom. Rachel said it was actually sad to watch. When I asked what reason my mom gave for needing to find me, Rachel said she claimed there was a family emergency, and she desperately needed to reach me. She even cried real tears, saying she was terrified something awful had happened to her daughter. That was a new angle. I wondered what kind of emergency they'd invent it or if they genuinely believed my absence was catastrophic enough to qualify as one. My dad even called the phone company trying to get my new number, but laws blocked him. The customer service rep actually called my old number to warn the new owner, who had no idea what was going on. And then there was Lena. They'd clearly recruited her to join the search, and things she was doing bordered on intrusive. Marcus told me she started showing up at all the places I used to go, my old gym, the coffee shop I loved, the bookstore I spent weekends in. She carried around a picture of me, asking employees if anyone had heard from me. She even walked into my old marketing agency. According to Marcus, she told the receptionist she was my sister, and that there was a family emergency, wanting to know if I'd mentioned anything about moving or where I might have gone. Thankfully, they told her nothing. But Marcus said something that stuck with me. He said Lena looked genuinely shaken, like her hands were trembling while she spoke. It made me wonder what was driving her. Was she actually afraid something had happened to me? Was she acting on our parents' orders? Had she connected the dots between her brand new house and my sudden disappearance? Was she sitting with guilt? Or was she simply lost trying to understand why I'd vanished from their lives without a trace? The most ridiculous part was finding out they'd even started reaching out to people I hardly knew. Beth told me my mom had somehow collected the contact information of other tenants in my old building and had begun calling them one by one. She even contacted Mrs. Henderson from 3B, the sweet older woman who lived down the hall. Mrs. Henderson called me completely baffled, asking if I knew why some stranger was asking her questions about me. Apparently my mom wanted to know whether she'd seen any suspicious activity near my apartment before I moved out. Suspicious activity, as if I'd been caught up in something dangerous. From what Mrs. Henderson said, my mom kept probing, trying to find out if I'd looked scared or troubled or if any strange people had been hanging around. Mrs. Henderson repeated that I'd always been polite, quiet, and had even stopped by to say goodbye when I moved, but my mom still pushed, asking if she was absolutely sure I hadn't looked worried or upset about anything. The paranoia was spiraling. My parents had managed to convince themselves that something external must have happened to me, because the idea that I may have simply chosen to leave them didn't fit the story they wanted to believe. Emma called with more updates about my mom's increasingly desperate tactics. She said my mom found her LinkedIn and sent her a message asking about my job interviews, wanting to know if I'd mentioned moving to any specific cities. When I asked what she'd done, Emma said she hadn't bothered responding there. But my mom had dug up her work email and sent something much longer. She told me it was intense, 3 full paragraphs about how terrified they were, how this was tearing the family apart, how my dad wasn't sleeping, and how Lena supposedly cried every single day because she missed me so badly. Hearing that made me pause. Lena cries every day? My mom also claimed they wouldn't ask anything more from me if I just confirm I was safe. But I knew that was a lie. One text would become a call. That call would turn into pressure for an explanation. The explanation would open the door to guilt trips, emotional manipulation, and empty promises to change. Nothing would actually be different. The most intrusive thing they did came right after that. They hired a private investigator. But even before that, they tried to run their own investigation. Marcus told me my dad had actually driven all the way to Portland, a 20-hour trip, and spent a full weekend wandering around downtown with printed photos of me, showing them to random strangers and asking if anyone had seen me. When I asked how he knew, he said my father had posted about it on Facebook. He'd written some long announcement explaining he was searching for his missing daughter, and asking anyone in Portland to contact him if they recognized me. He'd uploaded several old pictures and even offered a reward. I immediately called Emma, since she could still see their accounts. "Oh my God, Maya," she said once she pulled it up. "This is unreal. He's posted around 15 times in the last month about searching for you, and the photos are ancient, mostly from college or just after. You look nothing like that now." I asked what the posts looked like. She read one aloud. "Still searching for my daughter, Maya. Last seen in Ohio in March. She may be suffering from depression or memory loss. If anyone has seen her, please contact me. We just want to know she's safe." My stomach dropped. He'd publicly implied I was dealing with serious mental issues. And that wasn't even the worst one. Emma told me there was another post saying I disappeared without warning, and that my behavior before leaving had been erratic and concerning. He made it sound like I'd had some kind of breakdown. I felt physically sick. My father had essentially turned me into a fictional missing person with a fragile psyche, someone incapable of making her own decisions. Emma sent screenshots and they were worse than I'd imagined. He'd built an entire narrative where I was a vulnerable young woman who'd vanished mysteriously, possibly because of emotional instability or some outside danger. And people believed him. The comments were full of prayers, advice, amateur detectives swapping theories. Some swore they'd spotted someone who looked like me in other states, and my dad seemed to follow up on every one. One person wrote, "Check hospitals and shelters. Sometimes people having mental health crises can't identify themselves." Another advised contacting a TV show that helps locate missing people. My dad responded to each comment with thanks and updates, building a little online search party that had no idea I wasn't missing at all. Then came the most disturbing post, the one from 2 weeks before. "We've hired a professional investigator to help find Maya. If you have any information, please reach out. We're offering a $25,000 reward. We love you, Maya, and we just want you home." A $25,000 reward. They had turned my quiet, intentional absence into a full-blown tragedy. They didn't want the truth that I'd left because of how they treated me. Instead, they invented a version where I was a victim to be rescued, because facing my choice meant admitting their role in driving me away. It was easier for them to imagine some terrible disaster had swallowed me up than to take even a moment to look at their own behavior and admit they'd fallen flat as parents. The private investigator they'd hired wasn't half-hearted about it either. Beth told me he'd interviewed her along with several other people from my old neighborhood, asking about my routines, my friends, my emotional state, and whether I'd ever hinted at feeling unsafe. She said he was professional but almost unnervingly persistent, asking the same things in different ways like he was trying to trip her up or squeeze out some hidden truth. When I asked what kinds of things he'd been digging into, she said he wanted to know if I'd ever talked about wanting to disappear or start fresh somewhere else. When she mentioned I'd talked about wanting a change of scenery, he pressed her to say whether it felt like a normal career move or something impulsive or desperate. He also kept probing about whether she'd ever seen me arguing with anyone or acting paranoid before I left. The investigator had apparently studied whatever remained of my digital footprint before I wiped everything. He'd gotten screenshots from people I used to know online, stuff I'd posted long before I blocked my family and shut everything down. Emma told me he'd even shown her some of my old Instagram photos, and asked if she thought any of the captions hinted at depression or emotional distress. She told him I'd always been private on social media and nothing looked off, but he still scribbled down notes like every harmless detail was some brilliant clue. When I asked which post, she said he'd pulled random things from the last year, photos of me hiking, a picture from Marcus's birthday, even food shots. He latched onto one sunset photo where I'd captioned it, "Endings and Beginnings," 2 months before my move, and acted like it was coded evidence of a major crisis, even though it was just me appreciating a nice sky. He'd even contacted my old therapist's office, though they couldn't share anything, and he'd called my old dentist trying to confirm the date of my last appointment and whether I'd seemed upset about anything. It felt like my entire Ohio life was being torn apart and examined under a magnifying glass by strangers hunting for danger signs that didn't exist. My parents had managed to turn my personal choice into something that looked like a criminal case, dragging everyone who'd ever known me into their paranoia. And then came the part that pushed things into the outright absurd: what Lena was doing online. Emma told me she discovered that Lena had created multiple fake accounts across Instagram, Facebook, even TikTok, all designed to scrape for information about me or trick people into sharing something useful. She was friending people from my college, my old job, even total strangers who happened to share my name. One fake account pretended to be a cheerful travel blogger asking locals in different cities for recommendations, clearly hoping I'd respond if I thought it was just some random visitor curious about Portland. When I asked how she figured out it was Lena, she said she reverse-searched the profile photo and found it on a real estate blog post Lena had written for work, and the bubbly writing style full of emojis basically gave her away. Lena had also joined Facebook groups for cities where she thought I might have moved: Seattle, Denver, Austin, Portland, posting messages like, "Hi everyone. I'm trying to reconnect with an old friend named Maya Miller. She's around 28, works in marketing, and may have relocated recently. If anyone has seen her, please let me know." People always responded trying to help, but nothing ever came of it because she was using outdated scraps of my old life. The fake accounts had another purpose too. They let her check whether I'd resurfaced anywhere online after blocking them. She'd figured out I'd cut the family off, so she was trying to view whatever she could through her decoys. It was a level of digital stalking that was both unsettling and strangely committed. My sister, who barely spared me a second thought when we lived an hour apart, was now practically running an online manhunt every single day. By then the whole situation had taken on its own warped reality. My parents had convinced themselves, the extended family, their friends, and hundreds of strangers online that I was missing and needed to be rescued. They'd built this whole tragic storyline where I was some lost, fragile soul in danger, and they were the devoted parents desperate to bring me home. What they wouldn't allow themselves to see was the simplest truth of all. I wasn't missing. I was where I chose to be, living the life I picked for myself. I wasn't unsafe. I wasn't spiraling. I didn't need saving. I was just finished with them. Then in November, Emma called with something that made me question whether my family had completely lost their minds. "Maya, you need to sit down for this," she said. I told her I already was and asked what now. "Your parents hired a private investigator." "They what?" She repeated. "A PI contacted me yesterday. Really polite guy, very official, business cards and everything. Said he was trying to locate you for a deeply worried family." "You've got to be kidding me." "I wish I was." I told the investigator the same thing I'd already told my parents. "I could confirm you were safe and healthy, but I wasn't giving out your location without your permission." He said he understood, left his business card, and told me to call if I changed my mind. "This is insane," I muttered. But Emma said, "Just wait. Gets worse." She called Marcus next, and he told her the guy had contacted him too. Same calm tone, same questions, same refusal to take a hint. And then I heard the part that nearly made my jaw hit the floor. "He also went to your old apartment building." Beth said he interviewed multiple neighbors. Respectful but extremely thorough. Asking about your daily habits, your social life. Whether you'd seemed distressed before you left. I just sat there stunned. The same parents who couldn't remember my birthday had now hired a professional investigator and were pouring money into tracking me down like I'd vanished off the face of the earth. When I finally asked if he'd found anything, Emma said, "I doubt it. We all told him the same thing, you're fine, you moved on your own, and no, we're not giving him any details. He seemed relieved you weren't in danger at least." That should have been the end of it, but clearly my family had never learned the meaning of boundaries. In December, Lena decided to try a new angle. She tried hunting me down through my hobbies. Somewhere along the way she discovered I'd taken pottery classes in Ohio, and she started cold calling pottery studios in major cities, asking if they had a student named Maya Miller. When that failed, she tried yoga studios, book clubs, hiking groups, anything she thought I might have joined. Marcus later told me she had created even more fake social media accounts, sending friend requests to people with similar names or from my college, hoping to stumble across someone who knew where I'd gone. "Your sister is persistent," he said. "I'll give her that. Desperate to find me so they can go back to ignoring me with a clear conscience," I joked, though part of me wasn't sure that was true anymore. The sheer amount of time, effort, and money they were throwing into this search was starting to look like something deeper than guilt management. The answer finally came in January, almost a full year after I'd cut ties. I was having coffee with a new friend from work when my phone rang. Unknown number, Oregon area code. For months I'd ignored every unfamiliar call that came through, but something pushed me to answer this one. "Hello? Is this Maya Miller?" The voice was calm, professional, unfamiliar. "Who's calling?" "My name is Linda Rodriguez, and I'm a social worker with the Oregon Department of Human Services. I received a wellness check request for you, and I wanted to verify that you're safe and not in any danger." My heart dropped. "A wellness check request? From who?" "I'm not allowed to give specific names," she said gently, "but someone reported that you might be missing or in harm's way. They provided your name and said you might be living in the Portland area." "I'm not missing, and I'm not in danger. I moved here voluntarily for work." "That's what I suspected," she said, "but I do have to follow up. Would you be willing to meet with me so I can close the case?" I agreed to meet her the next day. Linda turned out to be a kind woman in her 50s who looked as tired of the situation as I felt. After confirming my identity and that I was indeed alive, healthy and fully functional, she asked, "Do you know why someone would believe you're missing or in danger?" I gave her the short version. Complicated family, long history of unequal treatment, moved away to start over, They haven't handled it well. And they filed a missing person report? She asked. Is that what this is? Not exactly. In Oregon, adults are allowed to disappear if they choose to. But when someone files a concern report, especially one claiming possible foul play or a mental health crisis, our department has to follow up. Foul play? I repeated. Apparently, she said, the police in your hometown were told your disappearance was completely out of character, and that you'd been acting strangely before you left. They sent the information to us as a courtesy. I was speechless. My parents had actually convinced law enforcement that I might have been murdered or kidnapped. Linda watched my expression and said, I'm guessing that wasn't the case. Would you like help contacting your family to let them know you're okay? Absolutely not, I said. I'm an adult who made an adult decision. I don't owe them that conversation. She nodded, unfazed. That is entirely your right. I'll close the case and mark you as safe and living independently by choice. But I should tell you, whoever filed this report knew a great deal about your life. Your work history, your friends, your routines. They clearly know you. They think they know me, I said. That's not the same thing. Linda gave a sympathetic smile. You'd be surprised how often I hear that. When she left, I stayed in the coffee shop for 2 hours trying to wrap my head around everything. My parents had escalated this so far that they'd gotten a social worker involved. They had created a whole world where I was not a woman who made her own choices, but a missing victim in need of rescue. And yet, the longer I sat there, the more one bitter truth settled in my chest. For the first time in my life, I had their full, urgent attention. As a kid, I would have given anything for my parents to worry about me like this, to fight for me, to search for me with this kind of intensity. I would have loved to know they cared enough to move mountains. But now, after everything, I didn't want it anymore. That night I called Emma. They filed a missing person report, I told her. Are you serious? I asked Emma, and she didn't hesitate. Dead serious. A social worker called me today. They actually told the police you might have been murdered. Hearing that made her swear under her breath. Jesus, Maya, that's actually terrifying. What if they try to have you committed or something? They can't. I'm clearly competent, working, paying my bills, living on my own. But Emma, I need you to do something for me. Anything, she said. I need you to call my mom and tell her I'm alive and safe, but that I chose to relocate and I don't want any contact with them. Don't tell her where I am. Don't give her my number. Just make it clear that I'm fine and that this was my decision. Emma hesitated. Are you sure? You could call her yourself and really unload about the birthday, the house, all of it. I thought about that more times than I cared to admit, but I knew how that would go. She'd deny, deflect, cry, guilt trip, and then expect everything to go back to how it always was. This way, at least they'd finally know I existed. So Emma called her the next day and passed on the message. She told me later my mom cried and begged for my number, but Emma held her ground. She did ask one question though, Emma said quietly. She wants to know what they did wrong. She said they've been going over everything trying to understand why you left, and they still don't get it. Tell her to think about the difference in how they treated me versus Lena. Tell her to think about my 28th birthday and that brand new house. If she can't figure it out from there, then she's even more clueless than I thought. Emma passed that along too. She said my mom went silent for a long time, then ended the call. That was 8 months ago, and I haven't heard from any of them since. I'd love to say I never think about them, but that wouldn't be true. Sometimes I wonder whether my parents finally understood what Emma told them. I wonder if they bring me up at family dinners or if they've written me off as the dramatic daughter who vanished for no reason. I wonder whether Lena ever feels guilty about the house, or if she even connects the dots. I wonder if any of them learn something, or if they'll repeat everything with their future grandkids. But most days I don't wonder. Most days I'm just happy. I got promoted last month. Cole and I are talking about moving in together. I've built a circle of friends who value me because they choose to, not because we share DNA. I'm planning a trip to Thailand with my hiking group, and I'm learning Spanish simply because it brings me joy. My life is full, real, and mine. I built it from scratch without their approval or involvement, and somehow that makes it even sweeter. Sometimes I think about what might have happened if they just sent me a birthday text. Maybe I'd still be in Ohio working a job that didn't excite me, sitting through holidays pretending not to notice how left out I felt. Maybe I never would have found the courage to take a chance on myself. I'll never know. And honestly, that's fine. The path wasn't easy, but it brought me exactly where I'm meant to be. If anyone out there feels invisible in their own family, feels like they're begging for scraps of love and being told it's too much, you're not wrong for wanting more. You deserve people who remember the small things, who cheer for you without jealousy, who notice when you're not there. And if your family can't offer that, you're allowed to build a new one. It might be lonely at first. It might be terrifying. But the people meant to stay in your life will love you without making you earn it. They'll show up without keeping score. They'll remember what matters to you because you matter to them. As for my parents, I genuinely hope they learn something. I hope they treat Lena better than they treated me, though honestly that bar isn't hard to clear. I hope they finally understand that love isn't just a feeling you claim. It's a choice you demonstrate through your actions, day after day. But their growth isn't my responsibility anymore. I chose myself, and it was the best decision I ever made. The strange part is that in chasing me so wildly, they accidentally handed me the greatest gift they could have given me. They proved I was strong enough to walk away, disappear from their world, and build a better one on my own. And for that, in a twisted way, I'm actually grateful.